Hello and welcome to another episode of This Week in Cleantech. It's a roundup of the week's biggest stories you need to know in climate and clean energy in 15 minutes or less. Today is Friday, December 20th, 2024. I'm Renewable Energy World Editor-in-Chief John Engel. Special guest Dana Clare Redden from our Cleantecher of the Year committee will be joining us shortly. But for now, I'm joined by my best friend in the world, Mike Casey of TigerCom, the Cleantech commentator. Mike, how are you doing? You always look so bright around the holidays.
Thank you, buddy. Well, we went to Walmart to see if we can get some reindeer antlers or a Santa hat, and they're completely sold out.
Wow, that's a great indication for the state of the psyche of the United States of America, is it not?
I think so. So.
Maybe not representative of the whole. Who knows?
Dude, I also want to thank you for that big gift basket that Renewable Energy World sent me. Did you do that, or was that Gerke? That was so nice of you.
Yeah, if it was Gerke, I'm going to be reviewing his expenses here shortly before the fiscal is up.
It's the 1927 bourbon. It's great. It's great stuff, dude.
Yeah, we'll have to give that a glance.
All right. Well, we are fired up to have Dana Clare Redden with us. She is part of a 4-person committee who's picked our Cleantecher of the Year. We want to thank Dana as well as John Christians and Brian Willis for putting in the time to pick from the many great Cleantecher of the Week options here on episode 60, John Engel, 60.
Yeah, and we also want to thank our listeners for sending in those story recommendations and leaving their feedback. Remember, you can always be part of the show by reaching out to rew@clarionevents.com, and we always have a link in the episode description as well. Okay, Mike, last one of the year. Get us started.
Our first story by Lisa Friedman of the New York Times titled, Trump's energy pick, Chris Wright, argues fossil fuels are virtuous. All right, John, you're up.
Oh, dear God. Okay, so the president-elect's choice for Energy Secretary Chris Wright argues that only fossil fuels can supply energy for people in poverty and that there are no other meaningful energy substitutes right now. He argues that low-income communities need access to basic necessities like laundry and cooking, but overlooks the fact that burning fossil fuels is making climate impacts worse, and that these same communities often bear the brunt of climate impacts. 2 episodes ago, we talked about how 40% of Africa does not have electricity access. That's about 612 million people. And the World Bank estimates that solar mini grids could bring electricity to 380 million Africans by 2030. A 2021 Rockefeller Foundation study found that investing in distributed renewables like rooftop solar and home batteries could create 25 million jobs in Asia and Africa by 2030, 30 times more than oil, gas, or coal. Mike, your thoughts?
My thought is I'm glad they give you all the numbers to rattle off, my friend.
I know.
It is hard to know what to make of the imaginative quality of Mr. Wright's worldview. He seems to think he knows something that 97% of the world's practicing climatologists don't know. This looks to me that it's to be a classic case of smart guy's disease. Here we have a clearly smart, educated person who's very accomplished in the business world, but that success has convinced him he's got a Swiss Army knife genius for covering all fields. Let us be clear that even in an incoming administration that has a very strained relationship with self-interested agendas, Mr. Wright will be a standout player by pushing narratives that pad his bottom line. John, story number 2.
You better be careful. I might diagnose you with smart guy's disease here pretty soon. All right, our second story is from Cipher, titled, Emerging Clean Technologies See Sharp Drop in Investments This Year. Mike.
Market forces, infrastructure gaps, and political uncertainty have stalled emerging clean tech momentum in recent years. A Cipher analysis finds that investments in low-carbon hydrogen, carbon capture, critical mineral processing, and sustainable aviation fuel totaled nearly $48 billion in 2022, $42 billion in 2023, but it dropped to $16.2 billion in the first 3 quarters of 2024. Further slowdown is expected after Trump's election, and the uncertainty around the clean hydrogen tax credits, first proposed almost a year ago, is really holding back investments. Announced clean hydrogen projects have almost come to a stop, though construction is still moving forward on some of the earlier projects. John, what do you think?
Yeah, permitting is a big hurdle in this slowdown as well. It's a long and contentious process, and even if you get approval, there might not be enough infrastructure like pipeline or storage sites to support the project. Despite the overall decline in investments, there is one positive trend: sustainable aviation fuels, mostly made from biofuels. This type of fuel can replace existing jet fuel without requiring changes to airplane design or related infrastructure. After the election, investors expect that mining and fossil fuel-based hydrogen with carbon capture may receive tax credits. They also note that commitment to decarbonization still remains high. The big question now is if policymakers can get things back on track to drive the kind of investment we need to hit our long-term climate goals. Mike, our third story.
It is by this week in Cleantech veteran, like Uber veteran, Emily Pontecarvo of Heatmap, who I am convinced now is Venmoing you money to make the cut every week. She writes, the age of electrons has arrived, but maybe not for the right reasons. John Engel.
It's easy to greenlight good reporting. All right. So a Boston consultant group analysis revealed that among the top 260 publicly listed energy companies worldwide, utilities spent slightly more on new projects than oil and gas, largely driven by the growing demand from data centers. U.S. utilities added $50 billion in planned capex during Q3 alone. On the show, we've covered how big tech companies are turning to nuclear for their data centers. Oil and gas companies are also prioritizing returning money to shareholders by exploring ways to directly power data centers without connecting to the grid, so ratepayers don't have to foot the bill. Chevron CEO wants to create large-scale solutions that avoid raising electricity rates, while ExxonMobil announced it was creating a natural gas plant with carbon capture to remove more than 90% of the associated carbon emissions. Mike, what do you think about those claims?
There are two key arguments here, it would seem. First, that AI supporters say that growing tech demand could boost early clean energy projects like nuclear and geothermal, which would lower costs for consumers and power things like electric cars and stoves and water heaters. On the flip side, this demand could lead to more natural gas generation. Almost among the 30 largest North American utilities, 65% of the demand growth is concentrated within just 6 of them, and these utilities are planning to boost their natural gas capacity from 26% to 31% of new generation. And renewable energy with battery storage can only compete with natural gas if the right infrastructure is in place to support it. John, our fourth story.
All right, the New York Times titled PG&E secures $15 billion loan from the U.S. Energy Department. Mike, your thoughts?
All right, PG&E, California's largest utility serving roughly 16 million people, was offered a record $15 billion loan guarantee from the Department of Energy to improve its electrical grid and fund climate resiliency projects. This loan will enable the utility to invest in hydroelectric power, batteries, power lines, cutting electricity costs for consumers while meeting the rising demand from EV adoption, data centers, and the transition away from fossil fuels. PG&E is also under pressure to prevent its equipment from starting more wildfires. The company had to file bankruptcy protection in 2019 when its equipment caused wildfires that left them with billions in liability. The company came out of bankruptcy in 2020. PG&E also pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter over its role in the 2018 Camp Fire. John?
Yeah, it's funny. About 2 weeks ago, I did a webinar with an executive at PG&E over at our sister site, powergrid.com. And I asked a question about the election impacts. And I said, what do you expect in a second Trump term? And I really didn't expect him to even answer it because utilities kind of have to toe that line as a quasi-governmental entity in many ways. And his statement was that utilities are watching closely what happens to the LPO. Will these loans be available to utilities? Duke recently backed out a couple of weeks ago, and PG&E obviously was able to get this across the finish line just at the end of last week. So I got some foreshadowing there that I didn't know would be this significant. So just this month, the Public Advocate's Office reported that PG&E had the highest rate increases among California's investor-owned utilities. PG&E rates rose 56% over 3 years and 118% over 10 years, but the loan could save ratepayers as much as $1 billion. The IRA boosted the loan program's office lending capacity from $40 billion to $400 billion to support companies looking to bring emerging tech and existing tech to the market. This loan covers a lot of batteries and transmission and stuff we know works. But the incoming Trump administration could put that at risk, prompting Biden officials to quickly offer financing to companies before Inauguration Day. And we know that Jiggershaw is trying to get that money out the door as fast as possible without mortgaging the process that LPO goes through. All right, Mike, we're closing it out with Cleantecher of the Year now.
Yeah, I love this. Dana Clare Redden, come on the show. We're so excited to have you.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, thank you for
Welcome.
coming on, and thanks for doing all the work with your colleagues on the selection committee. So we have a year's worth of really awesome Cleantechers of the week, and I know you have had some tough choices to make. So let's get right to it. We want to go to our first category that you all picked was the most impactful. Brian, can we have a drum roll, please? And the winner is Bill Weihl of Climatevoice. Dana,
Yes.
tell us about him.
Yeah, we were so impressed with Bill's work in the climate space. He spent some time in his career with some heavy hitting companies, and then must have known that change can come from within. And so he really lobbied his fellow employees and leadership there to make sure that they're doing what they need to do for climate action, and then spun off a whole organization dedicated to making sure that companies are taking a lead on climate change. And now these same companies are leading. So quite amazing success. He's pushed through some, personal barriers as well. We just thought that Bill was one of the most impactful from all those multifaceted ways, and wanted to recognize him in this way.
Terrific. Congratulations, Bill. Okay, our next category, the most disruptive. Brian, can we have a drum roll, please? And this will be Michael Katabe, Chief Operating Officer, and Hayat Badane. They are at this super cool company, which, Dana, I'm going to let you describe them at Cubic. I love these guys.
Yeah, so cool. I mean, when we think about disruptive, and especially what you were saying at the top of the program about, how climate change needs to be a global movement that includes communities all over the globe. They're disrupting in the construction industry, repurposing and reusing plastics in building materials. And we know the construction industry, they've got a lot of work to do to be more sustainable. The plastics industry, absolutely the same case. And we thought a disruptor like Michael was really leading the charge, and excited again to have that global view as well.
It's great. Okay, next category, most innovative. Brian, our drum roll, please. And this would be Greg Patterson of Origami Solar. Dana, why'd you
So
pick this gentleman?
So excited about Origami Solar, particularly from the domestic manufacturing standpoint. So proud of the IRA and how we've been able, thanks to that legislation, to onshore so many facets of our supply chain. And Origami Solar uses a patented a steel product for those solar frames, recycling steel. I've got to give a shout out to Western PA. I mean, I got to rep some steel here. And so we just love some new processes, new products, and absolutely the opportunity to bring more of that onshore. Greg and his team is doing an amazing job at Origami Solar.
Next category is our most entrepreneurial. Brian? And the winner of that is Emily Oxel O'Leary of Green Clean Wind. Dana, tell us why you picked Emily.
Yes, well, we've been as an industry getting a lot of flack for, hey, what happens at the end of the life of these solar panels? What happens to, wind projects when they need decommissioned? And Emily, I know she's a serial entrepreneur. She saw the problem and she created a business to address the issue. And so her business makes sure that if there's a damaged, a couple modules, that they'll hop right in there, make sure that those goods are recycled in a responsible way. She partners with developers, she partners with projects, and she's using her entrepreneurial spirit to really make sure that our industry is living up to, that sustainable and climate friendly motto that we love to live.
Nice. Okay. And now for the final, the Cleantecher of the Year. Brian, hit it. And the winner is Jonathan Foley at Drawdown. Dana, take it away.
Yeah, I personally have been a fan of Drawdown for probably a decade now. I think many people know of their impact in just giving the entire perspective of what type of impacts we could make on climate in all types of sectors. And what's really struck me, and this is back in the day, and talking with the committee, they had very similar experiences with Jonathan's work, is that he incorporated this beautiful photography when delivering this message. And we've been so stuck on steam, 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 which is great, but when we add the A and make it steam, meaning the arts, those messages and that data really resonates. And so Drawdown has done such an amazing made such an amazing impact in letting us know, where we could make a difference, and then mobilizing, all of those, interactors with their drawdown project to call into action. And so we really thought that, drawdown, we wanted to give them their flowers. We're all very excited about the drawdown movement and what they continue to do on a local level as well.
Dana, thank you so much for these. And I want to say, John, we're just about out of time, but I got to tell you that Dana and her 3 committee members really put in a lot of time, and we're so grateful to all of you for doing that and for listening to the show and putting up with John. I really appreciate your efforts for doing that.
You might not have to much longer. Who knows? My wick may be running down with you, Mike Casey. I don't know. Anyway, thank you to Dana. Thank you to our committee for picking our Cleantechers of the Year. And you can weigh in each week again by sending those emails over to rew@clarionevents.com. Please subscribe, give us feedback, share your story suggestions, and we will see you all next year.
The first full week of the new year. Thank you to our wonderful producer, Brian Mendez, who did the snare drum rolling, as well as Alex Peterson and Claire Quirin for helping us gather these stories. Happy holidays, all listeners. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, John Engel.
Thank you.
All right. See you next time.